Born into one of history's most powerful families, Mariana or Maria Anna was destined for greatness, but also tragedy. Married to her own uncle when she was just 14, she became Spain's queen and ruled through war, betrayal, and the slow collapse of her bloodline. Join me as we explore her shocking and sad story. Maria Anna was born on Christmas Eve 1634 in Wiener Neustadt, just south of Vienna. Her father was Archduke Ferdinand of Austria, the son of Ferdinand II, the Holy Roman Emperor, and one of the most powerful figures in Central Europe. Maria Anna's father was also the King of Hungary and Croatia, as part of the many titles which the Austrian Habsburgs had in the 17th century. Just 3 years after Maria Anna's birth, her father would inherit the imperial throne. This meant that any children of Ferdinand's would become important pieces in the marriage alliances which all of Europe's royal families engaged in at the time. Her mother, Maria Anna of Spain, was the daughter of King Philip III of Spain, making Maria Anna the product of two of Europe's most dominant royal families. But their union was more than just a strategic marriage. It was a marriage of blood. Maria Anna's parents were closely related cousins, part of the Habsburg dynasty's obsessive practice of inbreeding to keep power within the family. For over a century, two rival branches of the House of Habsburg had ruled over Austria and Spain, tracing back to a fateful division in the early 16th century when two brothers, Ferdinand and Charles, split the vast Habsburg Empire. This relentless intermarriage would shape Maria Anna's destiny in ways no one could predict. As we will soon see, the cost of this royal tradition would be far greater than anyone could have imagined, leading to shocking and devastating consequences for Maria Anna's life. Maria Anna grew up and was educated in Austria during a time of war. Her father was deeply involved in a brutal conflict that had raged since 1618, the infamous 30 Years' War, and he was determined to bring it to an end. By 1645, as peace negotiations gained momentum, attention shifted to Maria Anna's future. More specifically, to her marriage, a crucial piece in the grand chessboard of Habsburg alliances. The plan was clear. She would marry a Spanish prince. The man in question was Balthasar Charles, Prince of Asturias and Girona. He was the only son of King Philip IV of Spain from his first marriage to Elizabeth of France, who had died in 1644. But there was one glaring issue. Balthasar Charles was Maria Anna's first cousin, the son of her mother's brother. Still, for the Habsburgs, such close blood ties were hardly a problem. By 1646, an agreement was reached. Once Maria Anna came of age in a couple of years, she would marry Balthasar, who was 5 years older. Then, fate intervened. In October 1646, just weeks after their betrothal, Balthasar Charles fell ill. He died soon after, possibly from smallpox, just days before his 17th birthday. The engagement was shattered, and Spain was suddenly left without an heir. This created a crisis for Philip IV. A widower with no male successor, he faced immense pressure to secure the dynasty. His solution? A shocking proposal. Since Balthasar could no longer marry Maria Anna, Philip would marry her himself. Incredibly, the arrangement was agreed to. The wedding had to be delayed due to Maria Anna's young age, but on October 7, 1649, she married her uncle in a church outside Madrid. She was just 14 years old. He was 44. Maria Anna did her best to adjust to life in Madrid. At just 14 years old, she was now queen consort of the largest empire on earth. Spain's dominion stretched across the Americas, the Philippines, and vast territories beyond, making it a true global superpower. Her husband, Philip IV, was known at court as Rey Planeta, the Planet King, a grand title symbolizing his empire's reach across the world. Thrust into the heart of Spanish royalty at such a young age, Maria Anna had no choice but to adapt quickly. She mastered Spanish, navigated the complex court politics, and prepared herself for a far greater role. Though she was Philip's wife, she would eventually become the real power behind the throne. Maria Anna and Philip's marriage soon resulted in children. Their first child, Margaret Theresa, was born in 1651, and her fate mirrored her mother's in an eerie act of dynastic repetition. At just 14 years old, she was sent to Vienna, and married none other than her uncle Leopold I, who was Maria Anna's own brother. Tragedy then struck as two of her children, Maria Ambrosia and Ferdinand Thomas, died in infancy. Maria Anna and Philip had two other sons, Philip Prospero, born in 1657, and Charles or Carlos, born in 1661. But misfortune struck again. Philip Prospero died in 1661, leaving only Charles as the last hope for the Spanish throne. Then in 1665, Maria Anna's world changed forever. Philip IV, her husband and uncle, died, leaving behind a broken empire and a fragile heir. Charles, just shy of his 4th birthday, became king. But Spain's future was anything but secure, and Maria Anna was about to take centre stage in one of the most turbulent periods of its history. It was clear from the start that Carlos, better known to history as King Charles II of Spain, would not be able to rule on his own for many years. At just 4 years old, he was far too young to govern, and even when he came of age, his court would be dominated by powerful nobles well into his late teens. With Spain in desperate need of leadership, a swift decision was made. Maria Anna would serve as regent during her son's minority. In essence, she became the de facto ruler of Spain, the substitute monarch until Charles could take the throne in his own right. But ruling Spain as a female regent, in one of the most deeply patriarchal courts in Europe, was no easy task. Though she held the title of regent, her authority was constantly challenged by senior Spanish nobles, who wielded immense influence in the years that followed. Maria Anna faced an immense challenge as regent. Spain had once been the world's greatest superpower, its empire expanding across the Americas, fueled by the seemingly endless gold and silver from the mines of Mexico, Peru and Bolivia. But by the 17th century, those riches were running dry, and Spain's political stagnation, economic troubles and domestic unrest were becoming impossible to ignore. Now, it fell to Maria Anna to reverse Spain's decline, all while managing constant wars that drained resources and morale. One of the longest running conflicts was the war with Portugal, which had been under Spanish rule since 1580, but had rebelled in 1640. By the time Maria Anna took power, it was clear the war was unwinnable, especially since France and England were backing the Portuguese. Influenced by her Jesuit advisor, Cardinal Juan Everardo Nitard, Maria Anna made a bold decision. Spain would cut its losses. In 1668, she signed both the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle and the Treaty of Lisbon, ending the war with France and Portugal, and officially recognizing Portugal's independence. But Spain's troubles were far from over. Just 4 years later, war broke out again, this time with France. The reason? Spain still controlled the Spanish Netherlands, modern-day Belgium and Luxembourg, and King Louis XIV of France was determined to seize it for himself. Thus, the struggle for Spain's survival was far from over. As dire as Spain's international struggles were, they were nothing compared to the crisis unfolding at home. As he grew up, it was clear that King Charles II, Maria Anna's only surviving son, was not well. Historians and medical experts still debate what exactly afflicted Charles, but the records paint a grim picture. His body never fully developed. He could barely walk unaided, had such an extreme Habsburg jaw that he struggled to chew food properly, and his mental faculties were severely impaired. He aged prematurely, showing dementia-like symptoms in his 20s, and even started going bald around this time. To his contemporaries, he was known as El Rey Hechizado, the Bewitched King, as many believed his countless physical and intellectual issues were the result of sorcery. But the real cause for concern was more sinister. Charles's condition was likely the result of severe inbreeding, which had weakened the Habsburg bloodline over generations. He likely suffered from a combination of genetic disorders, including hormonal deficiencies, epilepsy, skeletal deformities, and more. This was no coincidence. Maria Anna had married her own uncle, and both came from a dynasty that had intermarried for centuries. Charles's inbreeding coefficient, a measure of how genetically similar one's parents are, was shockingly high. In fact, some estimates suggest that his genetic makeup was as inbred of that of a child born to siblings. Other theories put forward by modern researchers as the cause of his condition include one or more autosomal recessive disorders and a herpetic infection incurred as an infant, causing hydrocephalus, which is an excessive accumulation of cerebral spinal fluid in the brain. By the 1670s, it became undeniable. Charles would never be able to fully rule Spain by himself. Already struggling on the world stage, Spain now faced an even greater nightmare, an empire ruled by a king who could barely function. Charles was deemed to have come of age in 1675 when he turned 14 years old, and his mother's long 10-year spell as regent came to an end. However, court factional fighting and Charles's clear inability to rule for himself saw Maria Anna orchestrate an arrangement whereby the regency was re-established in 1677. Maria Anna's return to power was short-lived though. She was outmaneuvered when John Joseph of Austria, the illegitimate son of the late King Philip IV, and thus Charles II's half-brother, seized control of the regency. Yet, he only held power for 2 years before his death in 1679. With John's death, she reclaimed the regency, once again becoming the most powerful figure in Spain. This time, she would hold on to power for the rest of her life. One of Maria Anna's greatest concerns during the Second Regency was securing the future of the Spanish monarchy. Charles II was physically and mentally unfit to rule, but perhaps he could father an heir who might restore the dynasty. Determined to ensure this, she arranged for her son to marry Marie-Louise d'Orléans, the niece of King Louis XIV of France, in 1679. The marriage was miserable for Marie-Louise, and worse still, it produced no children. After years of suffering in a foreign court, she died in 1689, likely from a burst appendix, though some whispered rumours of poison. Determined to secure an heir, Maria Anna arranged for Charles to remarry within months. His second wife, Maria Anna of Neuburg, was the daughter of a German noble, chosen for her family's reputation for fertility, while her parents had 17 children. But it was all in vain. Charles remained without an heir. These years were very difficult for Maria Anna. She was constantly anxious about Spain's decline, her son's condition, the Habsburg dynasty, and frequently argued with her daughter-in-law. Then, in 1692, her granddaughter Maria Antonia of Austria died at just 23 years of age, dealing a terrible blow to the already melancholy queen. By the early 1690s, it was painfully clear that Charles would never produce a child. His health worsened rapidly, and many at court believed his death was imminent. Yet, despite this, he lingered on for another decade. Maria Anna, however, would not live to see his final days. In the mid-1690s, she developed what appears to have been breast cancer. After years of political struggle and failed efforts to secure Spain's future, she died in Madrid on May 16, 1696, at the age of 61. Her life's work, preserving the Habsburg dynasty, had ultimately failed, and as we will see, plunged Europe into a catastrophic war. Maria Anna's only surviving child did not long outlive her. On November 1st, 1700, Charles II, the bewitched king, died at just 38 years old. As noted, his second marriage had produced no children, and with his death, the Spanish Habsburg dynasty came to an end. For years, the Spanish court had wrestled with the looming succession crisis. Maria Anna had always favoured her own family, the Austrian Habsburgs, as the rightful heirs. Her preferred candidate was her nephew, Archduke Charles of Austria, a choice that would maintain Habsburg rule in Spain without uniting Austria and Spain under a single ruler, a scenario that the other European powers would never accept. Yet before his death, Charles II overturned his mother's wishes. In his final will, he named Philip of Anjou, the grandson of King Louis XIV of France, as his heir. Philip also happened to be a great-grandson of Philip IV, Maria Anna's late husband, through his first marriage. This dynastic dispute ignited a full-scale war. The War of Spanish Succession erupted in 1701, as Europe's most powerful nations fought over the fate of Spain. The conflict would rage on for 13 years, drawing in nearly every major European power. The war finally ended with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which confirmed Philip V, a Bourbon, as King of Spain. This came at a heavy price. Spain lost many of its European territories, and the Habsburgs were permanently shut out of the Spanish throne. Thus, for nearly 2 decades after her death, the consequences of Maria Anna's marriage and her son's tragic fate cast a long shadow over Europe, despite all her efforts to prevent such a disaster. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Maria Anna of Austria, the mother of King Charles II of Spain. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of her life down below in the comments, and if you have any other suggestions, also let me know down below in the comments. I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.